Catan is a game beloved by many players of tabletop games, well known to all people in all the lands, Catan included. Today we are looking at a spin-off of that series that is for digital devices only, called Catan Stories.
This one does not focus on the actual game of Catan you may know, but the stories that revolve around the world of Catan.
That's exactly right. This is not a digital board game at all, so if that's what you want, turn this off immediately. But if you're intrigued, this is sort of in the style of an old text adventure game, more like a choose-your-own-adventure book, if you're familiar with those, maybe you are. Again, in the world of Catan, also has some connections to one of the newer expansions to Catan story-wise, which we haven't played, so I don't know exactly where that fits in. But basically, you take the role of a raven who has some kind of a mystical connection to the world of Catan.
You are focusing on keeping balance in Catan, and you have a vision.
You have a lot of visions.
Oh, you do, but the starting one shows, I think it looks like war, but pretty much says things are not going to go balanced. So you require some assistance.
And throughout the game, you're going to be working with 3 different characters, and you sort of bounce between them in different parts of Catan, their own storylines. And you're going to read some text, your characters will do some things, and you as the Raven will have some dialogue options that you can choose. And depending on what you pick, you may have slightly different outcomes. And that's basically the story. There's some violence in these stories. There's some shipwrecks. There's some intrigue, all settling around. That wasn't intentional. Settling around the island of Catan.
Yeah, some of the choices could be simple as like, you're a talking bird. Surprise, and yes, I'm a talking bird, to maybe something like, which way should we go? Should we go east, north, or west?
Yeah, so there are some choices like that. Other than that, you don't have really, you can get items along the way. There's not like an inventory system per se. It's certainly not nearly as in-depth as like those old text adventures.
Yeah, you're not typing in, peck out eyes.
Yeah, no, there's no input from your side. It's just a multiple choice between story and dialogue. And you can choose to go between the characters at different times, but generally they kind of have a story and up until a point it ends, and then you go back to them. So this was, when we first heard about this, I know I was super intrigued because I love those old text adventures and I like stories.
Well, not only that, it's, before you say, so what's the story of Catan? I don't think you can give me an answer.
Well, yeah, well, I wouldn't say that was intrigued. That was the skeptical side of me.
Well, to me, it's interesting because I'm curious where they're actually going to go with it. Because, I mean, it's not like, well, that's obviously what you're going to do.
Right. Yeah, there aren't really, like, a lot of characters people think of with Catan or storylines other than just, oh, you made a city. Good job. So
there's the thief.
And I would never have suspected that they would go in this direction of a magic talking bird. It's a pretty interesting choice. Let's start with what I think are the positive things about this game, and I'll see if you agree with them. The whole interface is really well done. The music and the sound effects and just generally the way the atmosphere comes together is pretty nice. They did a good job with that immersive experience, I think. Sound effects come in at the appropriate times. There are these parts where you, like we said, you see visions, and then you can actually pick the phone up and in 360 rotate it around, and there's a sort of diorama, 2D kind of artwork that you can look at, and if you hit certain points, sounds will appear. I thought that was all pretty nicely done.
No, that was really cool. I would love to see, though, maybe my choices didn't, yours did. We played 2 separate stories. Who knows where we ended up? They're probably like identical. It's probably not too far from each other. But like maybe every now and then in a story, if there's something like when you woke up on an island or something, if you just had one picture that was just, like, it doesn't need to be 360, just like a simple...
That's fair, yeah, there is no, other than those parts, which are not too often, there is no illustrations. Yeah, it would be nice to have even a little, like when you get an item, there's a little icon of it. Something like maybe even that size of just like a tree or something like that.
I mean, you see, Jonathan actually reads real books. I only go picture books.
Yeah, graphic novels, they're called. I
do enjoy my Dr. Seuss graphic novels.
Yeah. Apart from that, the one thing we got to talk about also is there's this strange system. When the game first launched, this was the only way you could play. It is now optional, where you would play for a few minutes, experience a few dialogue choices.
And the guy would be like, hold on, I need to clear my mind.
Yeah, and then you would not be able to continue the story.
Continue.
You would not be able to continue the story for about 5 minutes or so, and your phone, you'd actually get a notification saying, hey, this guy's ready again, go check it out, which is a very interesting concept.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, the idea is, they want it to feel like it's unfolding naturally, almost in real time, and maybe you have more of a sense of immersion or realism from that. What ends up happening is those breaks come frequently.
Well, it's not only that, if that's true, some of them, yeah, that makes sense, like why there would be a break. Like one would be like, hold on, I need time to go clean up and do something. So I'm like, okay, that would take time. But one of them's like, I just see it's, hold on, I need to take a break. And I'm just like, so is he just going?
He's just hanging out.
And you're just the bird sitting there just, yeah.
So that is very bizarre. They smartly responded to people's criticisms about that, and you no longer have to play that way. You can just go straight through. I will say, though, even then, there are every time a little dialogue happens, there's a little buffer with like these feathers, this feather icon loading before the next paragraph or so comes up. And I don't know if that's for atmosphere or if they have to load that text, but when that happens every time, it really does start to slow down. I wish I could just instantly scroll and get the next bit of dialogue or whatever. So that's a little weird overall. And then, unfortunately, the hard truth of it is, I didn't think the story or writing in this game was very good. To me, it hits roughly the level of flavor text in a board game. It's the kind of thing you would read in the instruction manual of, oh, this guy says this, but it feels, I don't really know what it was trying to do. The people speak and it almost seems like they're trying to do like a Game of Thrones type thing, but without any of the violence or magic or subterfuge.
I would think it would have been a lot better if they focused on maybe two characters. Like if you just, I don't know, without saying too much, because you may actually want to play it. The first character you meet, he has a major event and he wakes up somewhere. Like, imagine how much more detail you could put into that area if that was the only story.
Yeah, I mean, because initially it reminded me of Grand Theft Auto 5. They're very similar, these two games.
Oh, absolutely.
Where you had three characters, and I really loved being able to like, oh, I'm kind of tired of this guy. Let's see what this guy is doing. And I thought that was cool. And in this, it doesn't really... it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, eventually you have to just go through each one of them. Eventually there are stopping points. So it didn't feel like it really made a difference. And that's ultimately comes to another big criticism is, like you were saying before, those decisions that you make, often they just don't seem to matter. 9 times out of 10, if there's a dialogue choice, whatever the response was, I could immediately tell was the same response for both choices.
What's even better is, I don't know if it came to you, but I had somewhere there was only one response. I'm like, why do I even need to click it?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's just kind of goofy. But so many of them were like, clearly it didn't
generic
matter.
Enough that,
there was no programming involved in that. And there are points later on where you actually do choose to go, like you said, a different direction, or there's an item, should I take it or not take it? You may even get into some more dangerous situations where you actually could be penalized a little bit, but so many of them are just pointless. And when I'm not engaged in the story because I'm not really interested in these characters to begin with, that's just another thing on top of it.
I think for me, the big problem it boils down to is this game is, as you said, it's not, the writing isn't as deep enough for it to just be a novel you're reading.
Yeah, no way.
And not enough choices and interesting interactions for it to be like the point and click that we grew up with as children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that sums up. If it had one of those things, you could forgive the other. But as it is, it's neither. So unfortunately, this was kind of a slog to play through, but an interesting experiment.
I would love for an actual either point and click or typing game of this world. Like the idea, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think even if they...
Especially to just go, give sheep.
If they kept this format and this interface and expanded on it, either make your choices more interesting or somehow add little kinds of puzzles in there if possible. Even like during those sections where you're looking around, if maybe you had to like listen for the right cue or something small like that.
No, like I think I had one of those earlier because I remember the character had a vision involving people running with torches or fire or something, and then someone's like, "Let me give you torches," and one of the responses, "You may need that later." So I'm like, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
And then later the guy goes, "Well, suit yourself, you idiots." Like, he insults me for not wanting to take his torches.
I mean, that's kind of funny. I did the same thing. I let him keep those torches because I'm a nice guy. I'm like, you're old. You need them. So like I said, those things do come into play, but not a whole lot. Crits and misses for Catan Stories. For crits, overall, the audio and visual components were really nicely done. The atmosphere and the immersion that you can get from that, they did a good job.
Yeah, especially the 3D moments where it really shines, when you actually used your phone to look around and actually hear certain noises of that vision.
We liked the format of the game, the idea behind a storytelling based on a Catan or any other board game universe. It seems like a good laying the groundwork that maybe they could use to create bigger and better things in the future. And one other crit for this game, it is cheap. It's only $1.99 to play the game, so at the end of the day, if you like the story or you don't, you really haven't wasted too much money down the drain, at least.
For misses, we're first going to look at the pause system or waiting system that they had, which was really confusing, and even though they've made a fix for it, it's still weird, and you do see when it happens in-game. Catan Stories also doesn't seem to know what it wants to be, whether it's supposed to be an interactive game or more of just a story. We found that the story was not interesting enough to really get us involved in the characters, nor was there any puzzles, important choices, or other interactions to really make it a game.
Yeah, it tried to do two things and failed at both. So you can take a look on whatever app store of your choice. This is on mobile devices only, I believe, as of right now. It's pretty cheap. You can kind of look at some previews of it if you feel like giving it a go. You do get a fair amount of play out of it, I would say. For $1.99, at least it's not short. So if you're really interested in that universe and you're willing to kind of give it a shot and you can put up with some less than stellar writing, you might kind of find something to enjoy about it, but ultimately, cannot recommend this unless you really just love Catan.
Or who knows, maybe this will bring some foreshadowing for the Catan movie that should come out sometime.
Yeah, if you want to be up on that knowledge, then get ready for it. Otherwise, don't. Hey, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this has been a Roll for Crit Digital review.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave some comments down below.
Yeah.